Mhm.
Okay, we're back for our second Zoom. If anyone hasn't signed in, go ahead and do that for me by typing your name in the chat box. And I'm gonna get my stuff ready, my screen ready to show. And we will start going over the assignments that we did today. I hope the assignments are going okay for you. And I'm gonna try to make this as big as I can. Sometimes it's a little difficult to see. Okay, so today we talked about text connections, and we're going to go over this lesson 7, where we analyze text connections. Okay, soil is a mixture of water, air, minerals, organic matter, and the decaying remains of organisms that once lived. It forms on the surface of the earth and has been called the Earth's skin. Many of our necessities come directly or indirectly from the soil. These include water, food, clothing, and wood. We drink groundwater that is pumped out of the soil. Much of the food we eat is grown in soil. Fibers from plants grown in the soil are used to make some of our clothing. From trees rooted in soil comes wood to build our houses. Okay, the question is, in this passage, what category does the writer use for things such as water, food, clothing, and wood? Okay, so this is what we're looking for: water, food, clothing, wood. Let's see where it mentions that. These include water, food, clothing, and wood. What includes that? Let's see. Many of our necessities come directly or indirectly from the soil. So that would be our answer. Let's see which one. So that would be C. Okay, moving right along. When the original Star Wars movie referred to a galaxy far, far away, what exactly did those words mean? A galaxy is a massive collection of stars, matter related to the stars, and various gases held together by gravity. You might say that the galaxy is a huge island in space. What about the far, far away part? Galaxies are separated from one another by millions of light years. A light year is the distance that light travels in a year, which is about 6 trillion miles. That's pretty far. Earth belongs to the Milky Way galaxy. The name of this galaxy comes from how the galaxy looks to the naked eye. There are so many stars in the Milky Way galaxy that it appears as a milky band of light across the sky. The Milky Way is so huge that even if you could travel at the speed of light, it would take 100,000 years to travel across it. It includes all the stars you can observe in the night sky, as well as millions of other stars too faint to be seen. In other words, it includes several 100 billion stars of all ages, sizes, and masses. As late as the early 20th century, astronomers thought that the Milky Way was the only galaxy in the universe. In 1917, a space telescope was erected on the Wilson Observatory in Pasadena, California. At 100 inches wide, the telescope was the largest in the world. In 1924, an astronomer named Edwin Hubble went to the observatory to study the Andromeda Nebula, which had always looked like a fuzzy collection of dust and gas in earlier telescopes. The newer telescope revealed that the Andromeda Nebula was much farther from the Earth than anyone thought. It was millions of light years away. It also revealed that the nebula contained stars. The presence of stars meant that the nebula had been incorrectly categorized. It was not a nebula. Instead, it was a galaxy. The newly named Andromeda Galaxy was another space island like the Milky Way. Astronomers now estimate that there are more than 170 billion galaxies in the universe. That is the universe we've been able to observe so far. Each galaxy contains billions and billions of stars. Okay, so according to an analogy in the passage, what can a galaxy be compared to? So let's look what it says about in this first paragraph. It says right here, you might say a galaxy is a huge island in space. It also says it down here, I think somewhere. The newly named Andromeda was also another space island like the Milky Way. So the answer to that would be A, an island. Okay, based on the information in the passage, what is the distinction between a nebula and a galaxy? Let's see where it talks about that in the paragraph. There's millions of light. It also revealed that the nebula contained stars. Right here in this third paragraph. And the presence of stars meant that the nebula had been incorrectly categorized. It was not a nebula, instead it was a galaxy. So let's see, based on it, galaxy is bigger than a nebula. That is not correct. Galaxy is farther away, has nothing to do with that. A galaxy contains stars, a nebula does not. That would be the correct answer. C. Okay, in part B, what text evidence best support your answer to part A up here? And we said it was C, the galaxy contains star, not a nebula. Let's see. So galaxies are separated from one another by millions of light years. Nope. The Milky Way is so huge that even if you couldn't travel at the speed of light, it would take you 100,000 years. That is not what supports our answer. It's not that the newer telescope revealed anything. It is that this statement right here, the presence of stars meant that the nebula had been incorrectly categorized. So that is what supports this answer for part A. How does the information in the paragraphs 1 through 3 connect the information in paragraph 4? Okay, so in paragraph 4 down here, it states that astronomers now estimate that there are more than 170 billion galaxies in the universe. That is the universe we've been able to see so far. Each galaxy contains billions and billions of stars. Okay, so what connects that? So is it that that it shows a relationship between the Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy? No, it didn't really talk about the relationship. It reveals different earlier space telescopes. Not exactly. It does talk about a more bigger telescope, but it doesn't give us a lot of information about that specifically. It contrasts what astronomers knew about galaxies a century ago and what they know now. This answer makes more sense. It didn't show the difference between numbers of stars that are part of the galaxy, so I wouldn't think that would be it. And then part B says, what text evidence best supports your answer to A? Well, if you look up here, we've got a little bit in the second paragraph. It says, as late as the 20th century. And then if you look at the last paragraph, it talks about how astronomers now estimate. So it is comparing what they knew as late as the 20th century and what they know now. So I would think B would be the answer to that one. Okay, and we will move right along. to scientific text. Okay, the next time you pick up a glass of water, notice what's happening with your arm and its muscles. The forearm bends upward at the elbow. You may be able to see the action of a muscle in your upper arm. This is the bicep muscle contracting or shortening to pull the bones of the forearm upward. Meanwhile, the triceps muscle has relaxed and lengthened. When you put the glass down, the bicep muscle relaxes and lengthens, and the tricep muscle contracts to straighten the elbow. Muscles pull, but they do not, or they cannot push. So it takes two muscles working together to move your bones in a sort of dance. Each muscle in a pair takes turns contracting and relaxing. Okay, number one, which of these is supported by information in the passage? Muscles in the elbow move your forearm upward. Well, it's not in the elbow. Tendons connect the body's muscles to the bones. It doesn't mention that in the paragraph. Pairs of muscles move the bones. I think this sounds pretty good. And the reason I think that is because it talks about the fact that it takes two muscles working together to move your bones. So right here is where it says that. So the answer to that one would be C. Okay. We're going to talk about Maxie here. While you go out, I'm all tongue-tied today. I can't seem to get it out today. While you go about your day and sleep at night, the International Space Station, or ISS, is traveling nearly 250 miles above Earth at 5 miles per second. The ISS is a joint venture of the space agencies of the United States, Russia, Japan, Europe, and Canada. Since the year 2000, it has orbited Earth about every 90 minutes. At any given time, the ISS is occupied by half a dozen international crew members. These men and women perform experiments and gather information about the universe. In 2009, a special camera was installed outside a module of the ISS. The camera is known as MAXI for Monitor an All Sky X-ray Image. It was designed to observe objects in space that emit X-rays. These rays are powerful forms of energy. Scientists think they may be connected to events such as explosions of stars in deep space. The camera is operated by the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency. The information it gathers is shared with the scientists around the world. ISS makes 16 orbits of Earth each day. During these orbits, MAXI scans the sky for X-rays. The camera collects information that is then used for scientific studies. For example, data that MAXI collected from the explosion of a star has helped scientists predict what might happen to the sun in 5 billion years after it becomes a white dwarf star. MAXI has also collected information from a gamma ray burst, which is the result of the collapse of a huge star. It could be evidence of the formation of a neutron star or a black hole. MAXI and other space station instruments are helping scientists better understand the early history of the universe. All right, number one. Which of these best describes how the writer organized the information in the passage? Okay, is it A, to show how MAXI is like other space technology? I would not think so. It really didn't compare it to anything. Okay, B, to describe MAXI's characteristics and function. C, to show how MAXI progresses over time. It didn't really show a progression over time or talk about that. It didn't argue in favor of technology such as it wasn't giving an argument for that. It was just describing MAXI's characteristics and functions. Okay, number two, which of these does the writer want readers to understand before describing? information about X-rays, what happens when a star explodes, the early history of the universe, facts about the International Space Station. Excuse me. I think it's just facts about the international. It gives a little bit of information about X-rays, but not in detail. It doesn't necessarily talk about what happens when a star explodes or the early history of the universe. Number 3, which of these is explained in the text? The size of the International Space Station, it describes the space station, but it doesn't really exactly talk about the size of it. So I'm going to eliminate that one. The reason for explosions of stars, it talks about it, but it doesn't talk about the reasons. The cause of a gamma ray burst or the description of a white star. It does talk about the cause of a gamma ray burst. And if you look, it says right here, it kind of gives you a definition of a gamma ray burst. It says, which is the result of the collapse of a huge star. So it does give you an explanation for that. So that would be your answer, is C. For what audience was this passage most likely written? Was it for scientists? I don't believe so. The reason I say that is because it does give a lot of explanation that scientists would most likely already know, such as what a gamma ray burst is. Let's see, what else was there? They talk about X-rays. It talks about the fact that they were a powerful form of energy. So it's kind of giving you explanations and definitions. And if it was written for scientists or science teachers or even amateur astronomers, they would probably already know those terms. So I would guess that it is be written for the general public to understand. Okay, let's talk about hurricanes. Hurricanes are among the most dangerous and destructive weather events in the world. They can destroy entire neighborhoods, villages, and towns. They form over warm ocean water near the equator and feed on warm, moist air. A hurricane is born when the sun heats up the ocean water and the water evaporates. The warm, moist air expands over the ocean and rises, leaving low pressure air below. Air with higher pressure pushes into the low pressure area and then warms and rises too. The warm air continues to rise and the sun and the surrounding air takes its place. And I need to make this a little bit bigger because my eyes are terrible. Let's see. The warm, moist air cools off and forms clouds. The whole system of clouds and wind then begins to rotate. As heavy rain and high winds increase, the storm system spins faster and faster. It usually forms an eye in its center, which is a calm and clear area of very low air pressure. When the wind speed in these rotating system reaches 23 miles per hour, the storm is classified as a tropical depression. When the wind speed reaches 39 miles per hour, the system is referred to as a tropical storm. When the wind speed exceeds 74 miles per hour, the system becomes a hurricane. There are 5 categories of hurricanes based on wind speed. The highest category storm has winds of 157 miles per hour or higher. A hurricane that reaches land can cause flooding and from heavy rains and property damage from high winds. Hurricanes can also produce storm surges. In a storm surge, the level of water quickly rises and moves onto land when the eye of the hurricane reaches landfall. A storm surge can reach as high as 20 feet above normal sea levels. Hurricanes are a danger from July to September in the Northern Hemisphere and from January to March in the Southern Hemisphere. They have different names in different parts of the world, hurricanes, tropical cyclones, and typhoons, but they are all the same fearsome event. Okay, What is the writer's main reason for writing the passage? The writer wants readers to understand hurricanes from different point of view. I would not think so. It's not giving different points of view. So I'm going to X that one out. The writer mainly wants readers to understand distinctions among types of storms. The writer wants readers to understand how hurricanes form. D, the writer wants to inform readers who live on the coastal areas of the dangers of hurricanes. That is not it. So I'm thinking it's B or C. Let's see. I'm thinking the writer wants us to understand how they form, because he goes about how the air changes, low pressure, high pressure, the warm air rises, everything pretty much contained in this second paragraph. So I would say C is the answer to that one. What information in the passage best described helps you understand the distinctions among storm categories? And if we look, let's see, the sun's heating of the ocean water. It doesn't mention that. It does mention the cooling of rising air. So I would think B would be my answer to that one. It doesn't really talk about the rotation very much. It does talk about the wind speed, but this best helps us understand the distinction. Oh, I'm sorry, that is not correct. It is D, the wind speeds. So here in paragraph 3, it talks about the different wind speeds. For example, 39 miles per hour is tropical storm, 74 it becomes a hurricane, and then it goes by category as the miles per hour gets higher. And then let's see, how would including this table contribute to the information in the passage? Okay, so if we look at the table, it has categories, wind speed, and damage. So let's see, does it explain how hurricanes form? The table doesn't describe that. It provides evidence for storm surges. No. Defines categories. This is what it does, because it defines each category by wind speed and damage. So the answer to that one would be C. Okay, we're going to move right along to the technical text. And let's read this passage. Yard work offers a way to burn calories, tone muscles, and create an attractive yard. The following chart shows the average number of calories burned in an hour by a 150-pound person for several types of yard work. Okay, so this is this whole chart. This is our title, energy used by a 150-pound person doing yard work. So this whole chart is based on the 150-pound person. And right here, we have the types of work. So we have digging, planting, weeding, mowing, and raking. And it tells calories per hour down here. So we have 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500 calories. So it says, about how many calories would a 150-pound person use while weeding a garden from 9 to 10 a.m.? Okay, so if we look at where it says weeding, this is planting and weeding, and this is about where it comes to. So what I would do is I would draw a straight line. I can get my line to work and take it straight down and see where it lands, and it lands on 200. So the answer would be A, 200 calories. Okay, congratulations on your purchase of a Second Chef model SC046 compact oven. Follow these instructions for preparing your oven for use. This is a one-time process that ensures any protective substances are removed from the heating elements. Okay, so it says first you use a soft sponge, washing the baking pan, crumb tray, wire rack, and broil rack in warm soapy water. Thoroughly rinse and dry these parts. Use a soft damp sponge to wipe the interior of the oven and then dry completely. You place your oven on a flat, dry surface with at least 4 inches of space on both sides of the oven and insert the power cord into the grounded outlet. The LCD screen will light up and the oven alert will sound. Rotate the function dial indicator to the pizza setting. The LCD screen will indicate a temperature of 425 degrees and the frozen food setting will be displayed. Press the temp time dial. The LCD screen will display the preset time, 15 minutes. Press the start button to activate the setting shown on the LCD screen. The oven alert will sound and the LCD screen will turn orange. A blinking preheating message will appear on the LCD screen. When the oven reaches the set temperature, an alert will sound. From 15 minutes, the time will count down to 1 minute increments, or in 1 minute increments rather. When time is up, the oven alert will sound in 3 beeps. The start button will no longer be illuminated and the LCD screen will turn blue. Your oven is ready to use. Okay, number 1. Which of these best describes this passage? Is it instructions for making pizza? No, it is not. It does talk about the pizza setting, but it is not describing how to make a pizza. So that is not it. Steps to take before using the oven for the first time. This is what the passage is about. B. It says, follow these instructions. If you look up here in this first little paragraph, it says, follow these instructions for preparing your oven for use. This is a one-time process that ensures any protective substances are removed from the heating elements. So this has just been purchased and this is the first time you're using it. Which of these best explains why the steps should be followed? We just read this in paragraph 1, and it was to remove the protective substances from the heating elements. It says this right up here. Protective, ensures any protective substances are removed from the heating elements. Okay, what should you do immediately after plugging in the oven? Well, let's look. Where does it say? Okay, so right here in number 3, this is where it tells you to insert your power cord into the outlet. So you're plugging it in, right? And then the LCD screen will light up and the oven alert will sound. Then what do you do immediately after that? Set the function dial to the pizza setting. So it is C. So right after you plug it in, which it indicates here in 3, in number 4, it says rotate the function dial to the pizza setting. Okay, number 4, which of these is a signal that the procedure is complete? The start button will be illuminated, the LCD screen will be blue, the LCD screen will be orange, the oven alert will beep twice. This is a little tricky. If you look at number 9, it says when the time is up, the oven alert will sound. So it does sound, but it says it will sound 3 times, not 2 times. The start button will no longer be illuminated and the LCD screen will turn blue. So the answer is B. The LCD screen will be blue. That's correct. Okay, and that covers all of our assignments in the Google class from the book. Let's see. It's 11:31. I may go ahead and go over this Common Lit assignment. If you didn't get to it, that's okay. We'll go ahead and go over it anyways. This one is conflicting news reports on the fate of the sinking Titanic. Let's see. Titanic kept afloat by watertight compartments being towed into Halifax, NS. This is from the Washington Times on April 15th, 1912. Steamer Virginian taking disabled ship to port of refuge. Passengers transshipped to other vessels to await arrival of the Baltic, which is to convey them to New York. Disaster unparalleled in history of navigation. Okay. A message to the Montreal Star from its correspondents at St. John's, New Brunswick at 1:15 says the Titanic being towed toward port by the Allen liner Virginian. Halifax, Nova Scotia, April 15th. Held afloat only by watertight compartments, the Great White Star liner Titanic is slowly crawling towards this harbor. Her passengers have been taking off to other vessels only to have to face a second ordeal as they are to be again transferred to the Baltic of the White Star Line this afternoon. The Baltic will take them to their journey's end in New York, where they are due next Thursday. The disaster to the Titanic was unparalleled in the history of navigation. The largest, most luxurious, and best appointed vessel ever laid down. She seemed proof against any disaster, and it is to the very fact that she was a new steamer that the passengers on board, noted financiers and society leaders, owe their lives. Hardly another craft afloat could have withstood a terrific shock when the Titanic, driving along at better than half speed, although in the midst of ice fields, crashed bow on into a great submerged mountain of ice, which tore away her steel plates. So question 1, the article claims that the Titanic struck an iceberg and that most of the passengers died. B, collided with another ship but is now being towed to port. C, is stuck on a mountain of ice after colliding with an iceberg, hit an iceberg but is still afloat with all of its passengers alive. So this is what it claimed, that it did hit an iceberg, was still afloat with all of its passengers alive. That's what this first little portion indicates. So let's keep reading. 7-liner Titanic wrecked by iceberg. Passengers transferred to other vessels in mid-ocean. This is from the Daybook on April 15, 1912. The biggest steamer ever afloat crumpled like a toy in nighttime. Wireless saves 2,000 passengers and crew. Kept afloat only by her watertight compartments, the Great White Star liner Titanic is slowly crawling towards the harbor. Her 1,470 passengers were taken off and put aboard other steamers in mid-ocean. They may thank a calm sea and the wireless that they are alive today. The disaster to the Titanic, unequaled in the history of navigation, the largest, most luxurious, and best appointed vessel that ever floated. She seemed proof against any other disaster. Hardly another ship afloat could have withstood the terrific shock when the Titanic, driving through the night at more than half speed ahead, crashed bow into a great submerged iceberg. Just how the accident happened, whether there was a panic among the passengers, is not yet known here. Only the wireless appeals for help came from the stricken ship. Captain E.S. Smith, admiral of the White Star fleet of liners in the command of the Titanic, realized acutely the danger of his passengers. The first message was received at Cape Race Wireless Station at 10:25 p.m. last night. It was demand for immediate help. From Cape Race, the news was spread far and wide by wireless and by telegraph. Vessel was reached and given the position of the Titanic and urged to make all speed to her aid. The Allen liner Virginian was the first. She turned her prow toward the wounded giant of the seas and set out under forced draught. Then Carpathia, the Cunard line, and the Baltic sister ship of the wrecked vessel, and the Allen liner Parisian were reached, and all proceeded toward the Titanic. Then came a time of cruel waiting from the moment the first message reached Cape Race Station until 12:27 a.m., where there came flash after flash from the Titanic. And each message was the same: hurry, hurry, we are sinking, and the passengers may be lost. Nothing could be done from the shore. The Titanic lay 450 miles south of Cape Race and 1,150 miles due east of New York. The only hope for her passengers seemed to be vessels in her immediate vicinity. At 12:27 a.m., message was relayed to the shore. All women and children among passengers have been put in lifeboats, which are being held ready for lowering at moment's notice. 3 times the message was repeated, and then the wireless fell silent, and every attempt made by the stations on shore to get into communication with the sinking liner failed. The communication with the Virginian ceased, and those on shore could only wait helplessly. It is known now that the reason the wireless failed was the atmospheric condition in the ice field in which the Titanic was lying helpless. But at the same time, it was feared that the great liner and her passengers and crew had sunk to the bottom of the sea. At 8:30 this morning, a brief wireless saying that the Titanic was still afloat and proceeding under her own steam was picked up. The White Star office in New York issued an official statement that it would be impossible for the Titanic to sink, no matter how badly she might have been injured. Shortly after 9 o'clock, a message was received that the Carpathia, the Parisian, and the Virginian were standing by the stricken ship, and the Baltic was coming up fast. Shortly afterwards came another message saying that the transfer of the passengers had begun. The first boat loads were rowed to the Carpathia. The lifeboats of the Titanic represent the last word in safety. They are wide and non-sinkable. Each can hold 50 passengers. Only 35 were taken at a time that day, however. Let's see, question 2. What does the article claim happened to the Titanic? Does it say the ship is still moving on its own, but its passengers were transferred to safety in other boats? The ship sank to the bottom of the ocean. The ship was still afloat, but no one has any idea where it is. The ship was able to steer out of the way of the iceberg. Well, let's see. I think that the answer is A. Because it did indicate that it was still moving on its own, and it indicated that the passengers were transferred to safety in other boats. So they're getting a lot of mixed information, but that's what this one is saying. Let's see. One dispatch to Montreal declared the Titanic had sunk. The conflict of messages was due to interference with messages and because all wireless messages had to be relayed. So let's see what question 3 is. The article claims that there were conflicting reports on what really happened because there was a lack of nearby ships that could relay messages. The Titanic had so many passengers that people were giving different versions of what happened. There were problems with the technology used to send messages. There were no new news reporters on the ship. If right here it says the conflict of messages was due to interference with messages because all of the wireless messages had to be relayed. This is kind of a toss up between A and C for me, because I think you could blame it on technology of the day, but I think it was that there was a lack of nearby ships. Oh, no, see, I'm wrong. It is number C, or it is C rather than A. This one was tricky, but I would say two you could have eliminated, and it would have been a close toss up for me between those two. Let's see. Let's see what question number 4 is. According to the article, what was special about the Titanic? So let's see. Just what is to be done with the passengers transferred from the Titanic has not been decided. They may be transferred at sea again and put aboard the Baltic and brought to New York. They may stay on the steamer they are now on, and these ships may be ordered to Halifax, where special trains are already being gotten ready for the shipwrecked men and women. The Titanic is the greatest of modern Leviathans, being even bigger than the monster Olympic. She also has the most luxuriously fitted and furnished vessels ever sent to sea. She was 888 and a half feet long with 92-foot beam. Her registered tonnage is 43 tons and her displacement 66,000 tons. 5,000 passengers could be accommodated aboard her, 600 in the cabins. She carried a crew of 800 men. Her captain, E.S. Smith, is the veteran of the White Star Service. This was the Titanic's maiden voyage. It was not begun well. When she was drawing out from Southampton docks, the suction she created in the harbor dislodged the American liner New York from her berth, breaking the two heavy hawsers like pack threads. The New York swung toward the Titanic and narrowly missed plunging into her. This was regarded as a bad omen by the captain and crew of the Olympic. The passengers on the Titanic included some of the best known names in America: Mr. and John Jacob Astor, Alfred G. Vanderbilt, Bruce Ismay, Clarence Moore, Mr. and Mrs. Isidore Straus, Countess Ross, gives all kinds of names. I'm not going to read all these. Nearly every cabin passenger was a multimillionaire. So what is special about the Titanic? Its large size and wealthy passengers, its compact size and great speed, its thorough safety measures, its onboard entertainment. I would say its size and wealthy passengers. But it's interesting to see how the articles differed. Part of that was just because they couldn't get the messages out in time. You know, it's not like our information is pretty instant these days. So it had to go through different channels and it had to be relayed. And so they got lots of mixed messages. But anyways, that is the Titanic conflicting reports. Okay, so we are actually, let's see, today we have actually gotten through the halfway point of our class. Next week, we will be going over author's purpose and author's point of view. That will be on, did I say next week? I meant next class. So on Wednesday will be class 5. We are halfway through the class, so we have 1, 2, 4 more classes left in this class, or in this course, I should say. And the last 2, we will be going over and taking like a practice tape test in class 7, and then in class 8 we will go over and review that practice tape test. We will not have class the week of Thanksgiving at all, so you don't have to worry about that. So we will pick up class number 7, class number 8, the very last class. We will pick that up the Monday after Thanksgiving. And it's hard to believe we're already getting towards Thanksgiving, already in the holiday season. Um, if you have any questions for me, you can go ahead and ask now. If you have questions about the assignments, if you haven't caught up, just take every opportunity you can to get caught up and get those assignments done, because you do get credit by assignment. And let's see what else. I think that's it for today, and I'll see everybody back here on Wednesday at 9 o'clock. So if you don't have any questions for me and you're ready to go, you can just type your name in the chat box to sign out. And then you are free to go, and I will see you Wednesday. Have a good day.